Craig, have you watched the Loudermilk series at all?
What's the? Is it set
It's a
in
guy
modern
who's
day, or is it?
it's a guy who's as edgy as Oscar Levant and just kind of nasty and cranky
Yeah.
and he's a drug counselor. I have fallen in love with the series. It's edgy. It's politically incorrect. It's like life. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff about life that sometimes isn't reflected
Yeah.
in
It's great, but it's
television.
great. Yeah, it's good.
We see more and more. Did you see Tar?
Pardon?
Did you see the film Tar?
No.
That's a great one. It was
Yeah,
one
I
I
have
couldn't.
not. I have not yet.
It's really great because especially as a musician, there's aspects to the film that deal with very unattractive aspects of being admired so greatly. And it's interesting because it's in a classical world and because she's a lesbian. You don't see, not that I think that this will be in the Bernstein movie or Bernstein, but you're looking at it from a different view.
Yeah.
And then you see all these things because, not that Star is Born is a tired old trope, but you know that the pop world looks like this.
Yeah.
Not that everyone drives a motorcycle on stage like John Howard Norman.
You know what it's like, and with Stars Born, that's like a normal Hollywood family.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the measuring stick is where are you, on the billboard this week,
About that,
Yeah.
you've been very public about your struggles with substances and the blessing of recovery.
Yeah, they weren't really struggles with the struggle was like trying to keep them hidden,
Yeah.
and finding them in strange cities,
Like you excelled at addiction.
Yeah,
That's what
I
you're
did.
saying.
It's like, people talk about, they when they got sober that they had a tough time, like admitting they were an alcoholic. I was proud to be an alcoholic. My heroes were alcoholics, My neighbor was Robert Mitchum, and trying to keep up with him put me in rehab twice. It was just like,
He was a big pot guy, right?
I love the bad boys. I love inappropriate,
Yeah.
Inappropriate, especially when it's like kind of a gateway into real wisdom and character and just, the people like Keenan Wynn. Keenan Wynn was my second father-in-law.
Oh, okay.
And Keenan Wynn, I always wanted to meet Keenan Wynn. I think it's one of the reasons that we got married is because I love the idea of being Keenan Wynn's son-in-law. It was like, oh my God. Because he and Lee Marvin would ride their motorcycles into a bar through the plate glass window, and it was like normal,
Yeah, it was fine. It was a bit.
And I just there's something about, my dad was an alcoholic. My dad died in a single car wreck when I was 13. And, but he was kind of a sentimental drunk who just drank every day. And there wasn't a lot of contact, a lot of, I never spent any time that I can remember on his lap or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's some part of me that kind of had this idealized outlaw kind of a father figure that were the guys that I wanted to hang with,
Sure.
The one thing is he was really proud of me singing. Now when I was like 7 or 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever like that, he'd get me up in the middle of the night to sing. So
that'd be at family parties or get-togethers, or just by himself.
It'd be him and there was a guy named Ike McShane that he drank with all the time. And he'd get me up in the middle of the night to sing Danny Boy for Ike, and Ike McShane hated me. It was like the last thing, And it's funny, I talk about this when I speak. I talk about my childhood and the fact that my dad never noticed that the last thing Ike McShane wanted was to hear some gnome sing Danny Boy.
Something. Oh, pardon me. Please go ahead.
No. It's that. There's a certain level of inebriation where the perception gets really, really, the blinders are on, and he was just, I think he was so unaware of the world around him.
Your brother also had issues, right?
both my brothers were, were recovering alcoholics, and before that, really good alcoholics, unrecovered.
All three of you excelled,
All
is what you're
three of
saying.
us, and
Yeah.
my dad, and I mean, when I was like 5 or 6 at a company picnic, we'd get a little glass of beer.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
And
that's almost that was a standard kind of thing. It was
yeah,
like some the
exactly. Have a
boys.
little glass of beer,
Yeah.
and have a little of that, and but my younger brother was a songwriter.
Mentor, yes.
Mentor Williams, exactly. And I mean, he started singing, and he lied to our mother, and when he was like 16, said he was going to go to summer school in Red River, New Mexico. And so she let him go to Red River, New Mexico, but he was singing in a bar and living in the loft over the bar at 16. So he was just born to be, I mean, he was just of the Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and he wanted to be a songwriter, like his big brother. And when he came out to Hollywood, it was like the early '70s, and I was doing really, really well. There's a story that I love telling about my brother. I had an office at A&M Records, and I was almost everything was getting recorded. A lot of stuff on albums and B-sides and everything, and I'd actually begun to have some hits. So my brother came out, and I got him like a little starter deal at a publishing deal at A&M. He listened to the radio all the time, and he wrote kind of country rock sort of stuff, and nobody would listen to anything. I mean, and they were good.
Yeah.
But there was something that was missing. So he was listening to, and he had a 6-month deal, and he had an office 2 doors down from mine. And at the end of his 6 months, it was goodbye, Manor, because there wasn't anything happening there.
Yeah.
The Saturday before his deal was up, his deal was going to be up on Monday. The Saturday before the deal was up, he went in to clean out his office. And there was nobody on the lot. A&M Records is the old Chaplin lot, so it's this great old movie studio lot. And it's empty and pouring rain. There was just the guard was there, and nobody was around. He goes up to his office. He's sitting up there, and he's just like totally confused. He's just like, Jesus, what have I got to do? And he knows all this stuff's coming off the walls, all the pictures and whatever. And he picks up a yellow pad and a pencil, and he writes, day after day, I'm more confused. Yet I look for the light through the pouring rain. That's the game I hate to lose. And he had a big faith. I'm counting on you to carry me through. Give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I want to get alive. He wrote Drift Away.
Yeah.
From the center of his chest. I love telling this story because there's this huge lesson, I think, in it about authenticity. About just being as much, undisguised, uncamouflaged, transparent, dependent, ouch, mommy, songwriter as you are, and other people are going to hear the parts of themselves in the songs. It was a great lesson for me, from my little brother. He was well-named mentor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the age difference?
6 years younger than me. He passed away at 70. He got sober. We had the same sober birthday, 12 years apart. I got sober March 15th, 1990. He got sober March 15th, 2002. And we never knew that. He asked me, well, about 6 months before I died, he said,
Wow.
what's your birthday,
Yeah.
birthday? And I said, March 15th. And he said, no, that's mine. Well, what's yours? I went, what are you kidding? So I was like,
Fine, that's funny. You would think that. No, you got it wrong. You're confused.
I know. But he quit drinking, and before he quit drinking, we were really, really competitive. When he quit, when we were both, sober, all of a sudden it was a level of brotherhood that we'd never really, had experienced except as really little kids.
Well, how would you characterize it, just in general, the difference?
Say again?
Oh, sorry. How would you characterize the difference in pre-sober days and then after with your brother?
This is my brother in pre-sober days. You know what? You're the best goddamn lyricist in America. you're great. You're a great songwriter. You're maybe the best goddamn lyricist in America. He'd say that about 12 times, and then he'd
Yeah.
say, "Who the hell do you think you are? The best goddamn lyricist in America? You're not. You act like you are, but you're not."
How
And I'm sure if he were here, he could do imitations of me being like the Dalai Lama with all of his, wisdom and blah blah blah, and. We physically fought a couple of times. I mean, he never hit me, but he'd pick me up. I'd jump on his back, and he'd throw me on the ground and go, "Stop." But we loved each other so much then. And then when especially when he was, when he knew he was dying. I mean, there was about a year there or two when he just was so absolutely overwhelmed with how beautiful life is.
Wow.
I mean, he had a beautiful home in Taos, which he left to me, and he'd be in his bed, and he'd go, come here. Look at this. The way the branch comes down, it's a perfect shot. The branch is coming down out of the window and all. You can see a little bit of the fence behind it and then the mountains, and it's just, Jesus, I just want you to see that. Isn't that amazing? And that those leaves, are gone and then they come back. He was just the beauty and glory of life just really impressed him.
It's really amazing to be in that state and be able to see all the beautiful things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about when gratitude became something that you were not just aware of, but able to embrace, because it's very much a part of you, and it's something that radiates from you and inspires myself and many other people.
Yeah, thank you. I love my life. And I am grateful. When I got sober, all of a sudden I just felt safe. I felt comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want anything. I mean, I just trusted. With Tracy Jackson and I wrote a book called Gratitude and Trust.
And you had a podcast as well.
Pardon?
And your podcast you had as well.
Yeah, exactly. We did the podcast as well, but she heard me, speak at a recovery function of some sort, and I know what it was. It was the I think probably the premiere or whatever of the documentary Still Alive.
Oh yeah.
And I said something about how my choo-choo has always run on the twin rails of gratitude and trust, because I'm grateful for the life I have, and I trust that no matter what, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. And I just, and she walked up to me. She said, there's a book there.
Mm.
And she said, what? And one of the things that I've heard a lot is people will say, why don't the rest of us have something like you guys, in recovery have?
Mm.
Why don't we have, these, like you guys have the 12 steps? And she's, there's probably an entire audience of people that have, life-limiting habits.
Sure.
That they'd like to get rid of. And I think there's a book there, and we should write it together. And so she was just, so disciplined and so bright. And we'd been friends forever, Well, actually, we had not been friends forever. We met back in the 70s, or maybe 81 or something. And I was loaded out of my brains. It was actually at Robert Mitchum's bedroom. She came in and said, "I'm a big fan," and I said something really rude about, "I hope it improves your sex life," or whatever, and my music. But I didn't say it nearly as gently as that, and
Yeah.
she kind of spun on her heels and went, "So much for meeting your heroes,"
Yeah.
And I always say she walked out of the room a big Neil Diamond fan. And but I saw her when in New York when I was about 10 years sober, or maybe a little more, and she said, "You're just you're totally different."
Mm-hmm.
You're what I was hoping, that you might have been like when I met you. And I was all I wanted to do was get high with Bob, and who always called me a doughboy. He'd go, and he always smoked great grass, which would cripple me. He'd go, "Hey, doughboy, this shit's no good, but you might like it." And I'd go, "You go try, you'll like it. It's not bad. It's nothing. It's like, 7 Up, And then all of a sudden I'd be close to crying because I knew I was dying. And then he'd toss me the keys and he'd go, "You know what? You're gonna have to drive. I'm really fucked up." And which of course he was not. And when I would go, "Yeah, but I can't," they'd laugh at me.
No, you're fine.
I've been laughed at by the best.
That makes me wonder about childhood and how that impacted your later use of substances, because in your music, in even the rock stuff in Phantom of the Paradise, there's a acuity in seeing the human condition. And obviously in songs like You and Me Against the World and Let Me Be the One, etc., and all the songs of that ilk, there's a yearning, there's a wisdom as well, even when you were very young. So I get the sense that as being kind of an outsider, you saw quite a bit.
Yeah. It's interesting because I hear stuff in the songs, and you know, at this point in my life, there's a guy that is a great friend and teacher, who is in the program, and he's written a book called The White Man Red Road. He's really cleaved to and always felt connected to the Native American culture and the teachings and the rituals and all.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about being a good hollow bone. Huh. That at our best we get out of the way and let spirit pass through us and all. And that's what writing has always felt like to me, especially after I got sober.
Yeah,
it's just that and so the voice that is making its way to the page, the content. Some of the songs feel so much smarter than I was, or maybe not more caring, but able to say, I don't know. It's an absolute mystery. I know that when I got sober and I started writing the first song for the Muppet Christmas Carol was Scrooge. And I wrote it in an entirely different way. I literally prayed about it. I said, okay, I've read this. And this is a story that I tell a lot because it's the best example I can get of the process for me.
Yeah.
Is that, I'd read the original book of Christmas Carol, Dickens. I read the script and Jerry Jules' script and all, and I knew what the scenes were about and what was required. But I literally, the day that I wrote the first song, Scrooge, I went out and I sat out. I took a Lawrence Block novel and a little hand recorder and went out into the park in Brentwood. I was living with my girlfriend at the time out there, and close to the park. I went out and I sat down and I said to I basically prayed about it. It was like, what this needs to be. Let me know when you have an idea, and I'll be right here. And I started reading the Lawrence Block novel. I read like maybe three pages, and I put it down. And I went, okay. It starts with Scrooge's feet. A door opens, you just see his feet, and he's walking along. Bum 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 bum. And he's walking. When a cold wind blows, it chills you to the bone. But there's nothing in nature that freezes your heart like years of being alone. It paints you with indifference like a lady paints with rouge. And the worst of the worst, the most hated and cursed, is the one that we call Scrooge. And it rolled on. There goes Mr. Humbug. There was Mr. Grimm. If they gave a prize for being mean, the winner would be him. Probably up to about there, it just came out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you guys are really good. That's really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But it's what I call creative surrender.
Mm-hmm.
That I got sober when I absolutely gave up fighting alcohol and went, you win alcohol. I am now opening up my heart and my life and I make this choice. I turn over my will and my life to the care of my higher power.
What was
The big amigo.
I love how you say the big amigo, especially because it's very relatable to people who maybe don't have the
Yeah.
same relationship to spirituality or religion. Uh, but the process, I'm really curious about, or how long you feel it took between 1990 and when you really locked in as a daily practice. So, for instance, I was diagnosed bipolar last year, finally, and
Yay.
yes, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
something
it's
to celebrate.
fabulous.
It is. And now I have the proper medication instead of self-medicating, which
Yeah, yeah,
everyone in
yeah.
this room is familiar with. So uh, I've also started cognitive behavioral therapy because the
Perfect.
flood of thoughts, right? And you stop it and try to redirect it. But I'm still early in the process. And they always say, well, it's going to get easier. And you kind of have to have the faith
Yeah.
that it will, and in yourself as well, and remind yourself. So I'm curious for you what that was like, the sort of the adapting rather.
Well, the first thing is that it was just great relief that I was I was no longer in charge of the universe, exactly, and also I didn't have to lie. I mean, God, I was a chronic and habitual liar, trying to hide my drugs and the thing is that with cocaine, I mean, alcohol made me feel big enough to deal with the rest of the world. Cocaine made me feel like I could shoot basketball for money. Is the bumper sticker joke? But the fact is that it did, lift me up into a place of such confidence
Yeah.
that I would try anything. And the thing is that when I believed I could do things and I got the chance to do it, I did. I did them, and some of them I did well.
Well, most of them. We'll get to
Yeah,
that though.
well, it was really interesting because, and after the early success of the 70s, you jump into the 80s, and I got to a place where I was really impressed with the intellect of what I was writing. So I wrote these brilliant lyrics that are in a drawer somewhere. Picture a diamond in the dark. Without the light, it cannot shine. If you need words to know your mind, what must my silence do? Oh my God, this is fantastic. I didn't
Yeah.
want to leave the room because I'd miss what I was writing, and but there's no me in there. I joke that I wrote codependent anthems, but what I really wrote was about the need to be loved. I want to be
Yeah.
held, pick me up and love me songs.
Yeah.
And people feel that. And I mean, the style of music changes and it goes around, and the genres are kind of getting together and moving around and all. And I joke that I want to write with the guys, that scare me. I want to write, in places that I've never gone before. So, but almost immediately, there are two things that jumped out at me. First of all, that no is a gift. That when and when I didn't get what I wanted, which was to be an actor, I wound up, just picked up a little guitar and started looking for. I mean, it became like journaling. It became like a diary, just putting out my feelings and all. And I think at this point in my life, I would take it to the next step, which is I do my best work when I'm lost. I mean, when I have no ideas, I mean, if you ask me to write about something, pick a subject, anything, whatever, and I don't have a clue, I'm probably going to come up with the because I'm going to get out of the way as this enters.
There's a great line that Bowie said, and I might be paraphrasing, but he said, when you start to feel comfortable, say in the water, just go a little bit so your feet are kind of almost not touching, and maybe push a step past that, because otherwise you sort of stay in stasis.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever find yourself in the 70s? Because you had, as you said, if there was an opportunity to do something, you did it. And it's remarkable that someone such as yourself was so adept at being funny on the Carson Show, hosting shows, being a wit, and being a brilliant songwriter, and being able to do Phantom of the Paradise, which is totally different than the previous material, and Bugsy Malone, these outside things.
Yeah.
So you had this amazing ability, and of course acting continued, and I'm curious about whether or not you took all of that for granted and sort of had a glibness about it towards the end of the
I
addictions?
think, you know what I felt like? I felt like I was finally, you know, I was one of the guys. I didn't feel like a star. I never felt like I had fans. I always felt like I had friends.
Yeah.
And I was generally, I mean, I was always right at the edge of inappropriate, you know.
That's a good album title.
And it was, and it just, that seemed to get the best response, so I didn't worry about it, you know.
Yeah.
If I thought something, I said it. I mean, I just didn't edit, you know. And the more, you know, I just there was. I think that's one of the reasons that Carson, you know, had me back so many times. You
Yeah.
know, that
Roughly 50 times, is that
I did
right?
40. I think 48 Tonight shows, and but the yeah, I don't know. You know, the I have the older I get, the less and less and less I have to do with why things worked, or you know, I know that when I was in high school, I used to watch. I talked about Oscar Levant earlier. Oscar Levant. I don't know if you know who Oscar Levant was. Oscar Levant was a piano player who was a terrible addict. You know, he was a classical pianist and composer who believed there was only one really genius in the world of music in a lifetime, and that it was Gershwin. So all he did was, he was a student of, he played Gershwin. It was like, and he had this blinking eye. If you ever saw a movie like An American in Paris, he's the guy that's like that's always smoking and whatever. And he had a local television show, and he would get furious with people and scream, and they'd have to cut to a commercial. And he'd come back and he'd be sitting on his piano stool with some, you know, a grip who dropped him, something that made noise while he was playing piano, and his humor was, you know, like Dorothy Parker. It was just quick and funny, and I always loved that. There's a kind of a brokenness that is in some talent, like Montgomery Clift and Spencer Tracy are my two favorite actors from those days, and they're totally different. But the one that just I go, is that broken? Billy Bob Thornton.
Sure.
Billy Bob has that. He's just in there with himself, and God knows what he's thinking, and it's brilliant. I mean,
and you work with him on Goliath.
On the Goliath for 2 years, yeah. Yeah, that's why I brought him up.
Yeah. Came to mind, rather. He is fascinating. And with your performances, of course, you're gleefully evil, I believe, as you put it, Swan. Also, another one, Stone Cold Dead. I kind of wish the movie was more about your character, because you were really, really sinister in that. And that seems like it was a fun area to play in.
You know what? It's amazing how miscast I have been. And it's like, I never got to the place where I could see myself as looking like enough of an adult to be playing that role. You know, it's like, I look at, you know, in Stone Cold Dead, or I think it was called The Sin Sniper at one point. I mean, like, I'm supposed to be like the head of all prostitution in Toronto, you know.
Yeah.
And I look like I joked I look like Haley Mills in those days.
Well, Haley Mills, maybe. I don't think so, but with a very sour face, which is very imposing.
It's like, and also,
sour
you know,
expression, forgive me.
You talk about Phantom of the Paradise. I mean, there was nothing in the music that I was writing, you know, Carpenter's Three Dog Night, you know, this very kind of safe, middle of the road, you know, easy listening music that I was writing, that said I would be right to write the music of the Spheres, and like, and all these different kinds of you know, of rock and roll, every, you know, from nostalgic, you know, 50s, you know, classic rock, to, you know, like doo-wop, to Beach Boys, to all this stuff,
to the latest in the glam that was going on.
Which one?
To the latest of glam, the Alice Cooper-ish material.
So it was like, to you know, hardcore glam rock, like Life at Last for Beef, you know. Salutations from the other side. I could see it. I mean, it was like, I used my road band, and it was a chance to satirize, you know, all the different kinds of music that I loved, but I never, why would Brian De Palma think that Paul Williams was the right guy to write that? He should have gone to, Led Zeppelin or, yeah.
Well, he clearly is a extraordinary spotter of who's the right person for the job at hand.
Yeah.
I mean, Jessica Harper's first film, so therefore, I mean, and she's just so incredible in that.
God.
And she related a story on the show about the audition process and then going to audition for you, and you asked her to sing a song that you've mentioned many times having a distinct influence on Old Soul's Superstar by the Carpenters.
Yeah, exactly. And what was interesting is, and I did see that one, and I just love her. I mean, it's just, she's a stunning talent, and when the scene on the stairs in the movie is pretty much, kind of right out of what happened. We were, Brian and I went back to New York to audition, actors. And so she's coming in and I walk into the outer office where I don't even remember where we did the auditions, but she's singing to herself. Long ago and oh so far away, I fell in love with you before the second show, and I'm like, oh my God! And I'm just like, I don't think I said anything to her, but just like or maybe Then I went inside, and then she came in to sing it for me, and she went, long ago, and also, and I went, no, sing it like you were outside to yourself. She sang it like that, and we just went, oh my God, she's just, I mean, and also the other ones she sings, caught up in your wheeling, dealing, you got no time left for simple. She just, she's just, I think she could, and it's interesting because, I think that her recording of Old Souls, it hasn't been a hit. It was, but it should have been, I don't think anybody could ever sing it better.
I love your version though.
Thank you.
As well, yeah. I always like. Oh, and I have to mention, Waking Up Alone. I love both versions, but I wish that the '77 version was available digitally.
Wow, I don't. God, yeah. Well, that was Michael James Jackson who produced both of those.
And it's only the two of you on that track, right?
Yeah, it's Michael
playing all the stuff.
Michael. Well, no, it's the section. It's Russ Kunkel, Craig Durgee, David Spinoza on guitar. I mean, it's James Taylor's band.
Right. There's a new documentary on them.
Documentary.
I can't wait to see that.
Those are the guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Bugsy Malone and Phantom of the Paradise, those were all my road band.
Gary Malaber.
Yeah, you know.
Caswell, was he with you at that point?
Oh yeah, Chris Caswell. We're still, working together. He's the one, he was, I don't know if you know the story about him on Tron.
No.
Okay, he with Daft Punk.
Right.
Kaz is playing, is brought in to play some keyboard overdubs for Tron.
Yeah.
And so he's there and he's playing, and he's looking at the scene or whatever, and doing some stuff, and playback, and then he hears about on la fondation de mon fan Paul Williams, and he goes, j'étais la fond le petit Paul Williams, and he goes, did you just say Paul Williams? And they said, yes, we don't know we want to find him. And he went, I just came off the road with him in Melissa, Manchester.
They didn't know
that he was. No, so he said, you don't know. He said, I've been on the road for the last month with him. We've been working together since 1977. They went, fantastic. So they came to see me.
Yeah.
And I wound up, writing lyrics to two of the songs and singing on the album. And all of a sudden, I mean, this is Kaz. This is Kaz just listening and hearing in that, neither one of us speak French, but hearing my name and with, well, thanks for the job, Kaz.
And Kaz was he the first one, or was he one of the major ones to sort of pull you aside and say, you got a problem, or however he put it?
The only one.
The only one.
except for my girlfriend, and I tried to get sober for her, and that didn't work. Then I tried to get sober for me, and it worked. But
But
Kaz said to me, that he said, I got to tell you, he said, I'm really worried about you.
yeah,
With the drugs and the booze. He said, he said, I'm really worried. And I said, you're fired.
it was that quick.
I said, yeah. I said, you're fired.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, that's none of your business. And of course, when I got sober, there was one person I needed to go see really quickly. And I didn't really see him really quickly. I did not chase music or acting or any of it when I got sober. All I wanted to do, I went to UCLA and got my certification as a drug and alcohol counselor, and I entered the Polly Lama period of my life. Come touch the hem, I will strike you sober. That's all I wanted to do.
Did you have an association with, when I do this, this might lead to the old ways? Well, I mean, did you have a tie in your mind to music and the substance use?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, but what's interesting, first of all, is the way I got sober was I had a total meltdown in Oklahoma City and a psychotic meltdown. I was tortured by a monster that nobody could see but me for like 40 minutes.
It's hard to do when that happens because no one can help step in.
Absolutely nuts. And I'd been up probably 3 days and nights, doing blow and drinking and a little bit of antabuse, trying to show the girlfriend that I wasn't really drinking or using, which was, of course, lying through my teeth. But there was a gig in Oklahoma City, and the promoter was walking down the hallway of the hotel with me, and it was one of those things where he said it was like somebody just threw you against the wall. I was thrown down escalator stairs, but
Wow.
There's no escalator in that building. And so we canceled the gig till the next day. I did it, and I told them that I had a reaction to my meds.
Which is essentially true.
Absolutely true. And you can appreciate that now in a way that is even more succinct.
Absolutely.
And filled with gratitude. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I came back. I drank on the plane coming home. I called my dealer the minute I hit the ground and all. And Friday night, in a blackout, I called a doctor.
Wow.
And he called me the next day and he said, I found a place for you to go to treatment. I said, somebody's been using my body again. What's going on?
Which monster called you? Because there was one in Oklahoma that was very scary.
Well, what happened that was most interesting about all this is that he said, well, you said to me last night you didn't want to drive drunk with your kids in the car anymore like your dad did.
Wow.
And there's something connected, and I had no intention of getting sober. And all of a sudden, I went, you know what? Let's do it. And I did it. 10 years later, I'm in Nashville. Went to Nashville to write. I was asked to speak at the jail. I went and I told my story at the jail. Did what we call H&I, hospitals and institutions. Go back to the hotel. Hotel lobby is crowded to the max with all these guys that are like wearing badges. Their promoters are. It's a big, some sort of a conference. Anyway, I go up to my room and my key won't work. My magnetic key doesn't work for the third night in a row, and I'm like, God damn it! I go downstairs and I go through this crowd, and I go up to the kid behind the counter, and I'm nice. I've learned restraint of pen and tongue, and I say, why should I have to come down here 3 nights in a row and there's a tap on my shoulder? And I turn around, there's a guy standing there, and he says, look, I don't want to bother you. I just want to say hi. I booked you 10 years ago. And I went, and I looked and it's got his name and it says Oklahoma City.
Oh, wow.
Went, oh my God, were you the guy when I lick me, when I did my Linda Blair, spinning my head around? He said, yeah, that was me. And I was like, oh my God, well, and then I'm 10 years sober and I'm a certified drug and alcohol counselor, blah, 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 Paulie. They just spoke at the jail, blah, blah, Paulie, this, blah, blah, Paulie, that, just massively blurting everything I can see to impress him out. And he said, yeah, I heard in the rooms you were sober, which is, and I said to him, you're a friend of Bill. And he said, yeah. He reached in his pocket and he pulled out a chip for 17 years.
Wow.
So he had 7 years when that happened.
Yeah. So he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, clearly maybe other people not skilled in the art would, but he could see where you were in the stage.
Well, and I said, well, you know, I was bad. He said, I thought you were dying. He said, I literally thought you were dying. I didn't know if you'd make it home on the plane.
Wow.
And he said, I said, what'd you do? He said, I called my sponsor. And I said, yeah. What'd your sponsor do? And he said, he hung up on me. And I went, he what? He said, he hung up on me. I said, why? He said, so he could start making calls, which is exactly what I did.
Oh, wow.
And we put together a prayer circle praying for you in Oklahoma City. And about 4 nights later, in a blackout, I called a doctor. And to me, there's not a doubt in my mind that my calling that doctor is not connected with the prayers. You know, it's just that energy. I mean, I don't know what my higher power is. I don't know what electricity is, but or how it works. But I use it. I flip a switch and it lights up my room. You know, but and that's the whole deal there. That prayer works, and it got to me, and I made the call, and I've been sober since, and it's just the greatest gift I've ever been given, and I had nothing to do with it.
And you had tried once before, right? And
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I stayed sober for 7 months, and I went to Jamaica and stayed up all night. Instead of working on a musical I was supposed to be writing, I wrote a song that I thought, have you heard this story before?
I do know this story, and I think it's an important one. I know it's in the documentary, but it is important.
I'm in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, working on a musical called The Secret Life of Queen Victoria. And I stay up all night trying to write that one. I'm 7 months without a drink, 7 months without a toot, no program. I'm not in any 12-step program. I am white-knuckling it. I am in charge of my life, and I'm just fine. I'm just fine, you know, grinding my teeth. You can hear it in the next county, you know.
Yeah.
But I stay up all night, and I write this song that I think because if I can write, you know, God, Craig, if I can get one more hit, I'm going to get it all back and everything will be just fine. And I haven't had a drink in 7 months. I stay up all night and I'm writing, and I write something that I think is just like, oh my God, this is a smash. It's a smash. And I get some sleep and I get up around 1 or something. I go out by the pool. I sit down there and it's like, I take a deep breath and I listen to I hit the recorder and listen to what I took my place beside you, girl. I mean, I don't remember what the words were, but I remember the melody because I'm going, I did a dee da beat, I took my place, and I realized that I had rewritten "O Little Town of Bethlehem," "O Little Town of Bethlehem, I took my place beside you."
That is a smash, "O Little Town."
Oh, it would not have been a smash under.
No, I mean, "O Little Town of Bethlehem."
Even if it was the first, but you don't want to steal from the big amigo, you know.
That's
so it's
true.
like, oh Jesus, oh Jesus, you know.
No, I mean, sorry.
At that exact moment, the houseboy or whatever his title was in a white jacket with the tray and the ice and the rum and everything asked me if I wanted a rum and Coke, and I said I would like one rum and Coke, one light, easy rum and Coke. I'm the Paul Williams. I've got enough willpower to have one. And I had that one at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I was at Bob Marley's grave explaining reggae to a lot of black people I didn't know, you know, just off and running out of my mind, you know.
Would this be when the lying started, or was this something that you were doing before? Well, you said, actually, sorry, you did say, you said in the Oklahoma City incident that the anti-abuse and telling the girlfriend and all that stuff. But
that whole thing, because I was off and running after the 7 months of white knuckling, I did like about 2 years, but I was back drinking and it just got worse and worse and worse. And wait a minute, yeah, and then I went at the worst of the worst was when I went to Oklahoma City and did the gig, came home. They prayed for me. I went to treatment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I flipped.
Became the Dalai Lama.
Right. I read a really fascinating thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, no, it's just that's the story. It's just it's all a gift. It's all a gift, and I just have never. I found my tribe.
There's a fascinating admission from Pete Townsend in his book about his relapse, which is a very similar story. I can do controlled drinking, is what he
Oh yeah,
thought.
yeah, exactly.
I just launched Tommy on Broadway. I'm doing fine. And then he said he slept next to a dumpster at one point. But he said that first time he had a glass of champagne or something in a similar way. This is the right
Gonna have
setting.
one.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
come on, I got to be
What
a part
could
of
have
this.
possibly hurt? Well, everybody.
Right. And he said something that you rarely hear from people. Instead of it was obviously those things are bad, but he said he got on his knees in his hotel room, thanking God for helping him find the thing that gave him relief again.
Wow.
Isn't that an amazingly candid?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's if you're not sure you're an alcoholic, or if you haven't had that spiritual awakening, if you hadn't had that gift of just like, for me it was waking up, after I was medically detoxed.
Oh wow.
And my hand didn't hurt because I used to sleep holding a 2-gram bottle, squeezing it really tight with a what we called a bullet on top.
Oh, okay. Easy
open the
access. Yeah.
Have a toot, get up, pee. The toot was so bad that I could go back to sleep for another half an hour or so, whatever. I slept very, very little and all, but it's just to all of us. The thing is that when I'd wake up, I thought everybody had a glass of vodka in the shower in the morning if I took a shower, because it got so bad that it's just. But when you wake up and the cravings are gone,
Mm-hmm.
and they were gone, and you're sitting down with people and they're telling their stories and they sound like you. You tell and you share with them something terrible you did, and they laugh and they go, "Yeah, me too." You go, it's like, "Oh, home. I'm home."
What's the line about your secrets? I can't remember the
Only as
exact.
sick as our secrets.
Exactly, and because we all think, oh, that's terrible, and that's just me, or I have this deficiency where I think about all these negative versions of, or think bad things about my loved ones, or whatever, intrusive thoughts, whatever you want to call them, and you then find out at a certain point, ideally, that these are shared problems.
There was no shame for me.
Yeah.
In my recovery, there was no. It's like there's a lot of things that were worthy of my shame.
Mm-hmm.
But what was larger than my shame was my ability to fix whatever I could, and nothing made me feel as good as basically this whole love and service thing. And the thing is, they say, like whatever, we get to keep the miracle by giving it away, is the way I describe it. And the thing is that's. It's like you're going, "Oh, I'm going to be of service." That's work. It's not work. What it is it's like it's a real high. I mean, it's like, you want a 12-step call with somebody. It's like, we were amazing. We were like, I mean, we're talking build a statue. We were great. And it just, because the ego embraces the pure joy of doing the right thing and being actually helpful instead of in the way. I've never felt more useful in my life, and that's a remarkable high for somebody who just keeps kind of thinking they're fabulous, and somewhere back inside there they're going, when am I gonna get caught? When are they gonna realize that that I'm
Imposter?
I'm an imposter.
Yeah. And
who told you?
I got the dossier on you. Yeah. I read the secret code in the lyrics. There's lyric sheets in there.
Yeah.
In regards to fixing stuff, you had I don't know, how would you describe this? A falling out with Barbra Streisand after winning the Academy Award for Evergreen, and writing most of I'd say like half of Star is Born soundtrack. Of which I have to
like 7 songs.
Well, and by the way, Hellacious Acres is a favorite. But also, I really wanted to tell you this. When I've had obviously depressive episodes, severe ones, and one of the songs there's a number of your songs that have lifted me up. and continue to. But watch, and I'm forgetting the
Watch
name of it.
Closely Now.
What? Sorry, thank you. Watch Closely Now. A couple times on repeat was the thing that helped me to, look in the mirror and sort of charge myself up, and then get ready to dive back into whatever it was. So I wanted to tell you that.
It was an amazing, I got a phone call from Barbara, and it was interesting. I was getting fitted for a tuxedo, and my first wife Katie. Oh, sorry, my first wife Katie.
Oh no, it's okay. Believe me, I'm the same. You see me with my hands.
My first wife Katie came into the room and went. It's Barbara Streisand. She wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh my God, Barbara Streisand. Hello. And like I get a call from Barbara Streisand every day. And there was a song I'd written with Kenny Asher called You and Me Against the World.
Mm.
And she said, we're doing A Star is Born, Chris Christopherson and myself. And do you know the movie? I said, oh yeah, absolutely. And she said, there's a scene in the movie where he writes a song that I want to sing at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's a song that I discover after he's died, but like that, and I would like something like You and Me Against the World. And that's what she said. What I heard was, I'd like you to write all the songs for A Star is Born. Because I was just, I don't know. My ego was listening, and my hearing's always been, trashy. I wear hearing aids, and that helps a little bit. The big amigo has a great sense of humor. I finally learned to listen, and now I can't hear. But so she sent me a script, and I just wrote down a lot of ideas about what the songs would be about and where they'd go and stuff like that. I wish I remembered it well enough to say with absolute certainty that I kind of went through there and made notes about what the song like that. I think that a lot of it was off the top of my head or whatever, but I went out to Malibu to meet with her and John Peters, and John Peters and Barbara looked at me kind of like they were sort of stunned, and asked if I would step out and give them a moment alone, and then I went out and they came and had me come back in, and Peters said, "You're not intimidated by this, are you?" And I'm sure I was, but I was probably fried just enough to where I didn't have to look at it. I could keep it bubbling under the surface. But I also knew that, I could do this.
Yeah.
And I said, I wrote, the song you like is I wrote with Kenny Asher, and I had, I had just done the Muppet Movie with Kenny. So
Not
wait,
bad.
wait. I turned around. No, I had not done the Muppet. What was I? I had just written almost all of a musical about Dorothy Parker with Kenny.
Oh wow!
So we're like really into we're into as creatively, like he farts and I feel better. We are tight and making sense to each other, and we're on fire. Our collaboration is on fire.
Yeah.
And I suggested Kenny to Barbara, and it was the smartest thing I ever did, because he came in and he brought and then later on with the Muppet Movie too. I was, after I did the one other thing with, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but so it was an interesting. There were I think 7, maybe 2 months before they start shooting. And the first things we were going to be shooting was all of Chris's stuff.
Because you wrote the bulk of Chris's songs in the film.
Yeah, I wrote, Watch Closely Now. Well, Kenny and I wrote Watch Closely Now, Hellacious Acres. I wrote, we wrote Woman in the Moon, with One More Look at You. Excuse me, with One More Look at You. Yeah, with One More Look at You. I wrote Evergreen with her. Mm-hmm. I wrote Hellacious Acres, and there was one other one in there as well. Everything I wrote with.
Oh yeah,
with Rupert Holmes. But it was like, she's going through she was very hands-on about, she was on the phone a lot about where are you, what are you doing? Like, I've got this idea. This was, but I went out of my way to not be intimidated by her in person, and I think I was a little unfair at a public level about about being flippant about what's it like to work with Barbra Streisand, and I won't repeat what I said. It was very funny, but I don't want to repeat it because it would just be getting more mileage out of it. You know? So what I said was no.
Incidentally, what it was because it was quite funny, and it's a shame to let a good line go to waste. But
it was so it was when she asked me like what I needed to write, I said I need to have white wine at my fingertips wherever I sit in this house, and I need cashews. And the next time I came out there, she had bowls of cashews next to every chair.
Wow.
And a guy following me around with a red refreshing. And I wasn't even a wine drinker. I don't know why I said that.
It just seemed right. Yeah.
But I have to tell you, when I got sober, I mean, I had said some really funny things about working with Barbra that were not very kind. And one of the first things I did was I called her and made amends. And she was aware of the 12 steps, and she appreciated that and all. And I'm thrilled that in this new album that's called, Barbra Streisand Evergreens, she once again put a new recording of Evergreen on it. But she also put a song that Kenny and I wrote with her called Answer Me that I really love.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks a little bit about that in the
new
book,
memoir?
In the book,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to the whole thing. It's 47 hours, and I can't wait. I'm very excited about that.
Please let me know how it is.
I will, and I'll excerpt the portion about you and send it off, because apparently she extemporizes a little bit in it. She goes off page, and she adds some things. But were you on set for that? Were you there during the shooting?
Almost never. I mean, there was one. I left at one point right when they started shooting. I went on tour with Olivia Newton-John. We took the Starship, and we were on, but one of our first stops.
Wait, sorry for listeners who don't know, the Starship was originally Led Zeppelin's plane.
Exactly.
And then it became the touring plane, right? It had a piano, or
I mean, it had 2 bedrooms. There was a fireplace in in Olivia's bedroom. I mean, it was like just it was not a real fireplace, but it was a fireplace. It glowed in the dark.
Yeah.
And there was a 25-foot or longer bar, and Olivia and I did like about 2 months on the road in that. But one of the first stops we made was in Arizona where they were shooting.
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
So it's like I'm walking on I get off the plane and I'm walking along, and then there's somebody goes by carrying a thing, and the next thing I know, wait a minute, that's Cat? That's Christopherson. Wait a minute, what the hell? And I realized what we've done is we just sat right down in where they were going to be shooting,
because they did that live stuff actually live, right?
But getting on the plane,
Uh-huh.
I called Barbra actually, and I called her, and I think she was shooting. I'm not sure if she was shooting the scene with Chris. I think she was probably in when I called her, probably in Arizona. It doesn't matter. But what I suggested to her is that we flip the first 2 lines. Because I wrote love fresh as the morning air, love soft as an easy chair, and I went, you know what? Well, it doesn't sing as love fresh as the morning air, love soft as an easy. Love soft as an easy chair, love fresh as the morning. Morning sang better there.
Yeah.
So I called her and I said, I said, we'll probably get laughed out of town, but what if you start the line with the line about the easy chair? She went, love, you're right. Thanks, click. I don't know if I'm not sure that, I think, she was doing everything. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge, and a monstrous success.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of another line that you weren't sure about, what I've got they used to call the blues.
Oh, yeah, that was a Phil line.
Which then was mentioned to you by a hero of yours as something that they found exceptional.
Well, the Johnny Mercer line. Yeah, exactly. Well, Do you know about my acceptance of the Johnny Mercer Award?
No.
In the Johnny Mercer Award, I said, this may be a great place to. I think that for years I've been telling a story as the truth that was something that I thought Johnny Mercer said to me.
Oh, okay.
Because and I swear to God, I thought he did, but in back in the 70s, I was at ASCAP, and Rainy Days and Mondays had just come out. And I ran into at the recording studio at A&M Records. I ran into Hank Shikala, who's a great engineer. He said, "Guess who's in mixing room C?" I said, "Who?" He said, "Johnny Mercer." I went, "Oh Jesus!" I'm not going to come in there, but I really want to meet him. Does he drink coffee? He said, "I would think so." So I waited by the coffee pot for like an hour. And I'm just drinking coffee and waiting. And sure as hell, I see the door open, and here comes Johnny Mercer. And he walks up, and I've been waiting for this is one of the greatest lyricists in the world, ever. Ever.
Yeah.
And I go, "Mr. Mercer, I want to introduce myself. I'm Paul Williams, and I'm just a huge, huge student and fan," and whatever I said. I don't remember what I said, so I'm lying if I said student, But he said, "Oh, it's nice to meet you." And he pours himself a cup of coffee and goes back in. And I was, "Well, there you go." And then he stuck his head back out and he went, "Paul Williams?" And I swore he said, "What I've got they used to call the blues, that Paul Williams?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's mine. What I've got they used to call the blues." And he got a weird little look on his face, which I totally ignored for probably 30 years or whatever, or more than that, 40 years. But I've told the story about that, and it was just an amazing bit of recognition from Johnny Mercer.
Sure.
And then 2 years ago, actually in 2019, but they had to postpone it, or 2020, they had to postpone it because of COVID. I was given the Johnny Mercer Award, which is, if you have to already be a member of the Songwriter Hall of Fame to get that, and it's referred to as the highest award that the Songwriter Hall of Fame gives. So I get up and I tell that story, and I go, "I have to tell you, I wanted to thank all these people, but this is the most important thing I can do right now. I want you to know, I think I've been telling this story about Johnny Mercer for 40 or some years, and I may be lying." And I said, I need to clean it up right now. The fact is, I thought he said, and I told this story, I thought he said, "What I've got they used to call the blues, that Paul Williams." And it may not have been what he said at all. It's what I heard. And I need to clean it up, and it was the program in action. It was me making amends at a place where I did it one other time. I did a show with Dinah Shore. We I was a host on her show, co-host for a couple of years, revolving co-host. And at Betty Ford, they're doing a big event down there. I said that I was sober, and I wasn't.
Wow.
So from that stage, when I went back and I was sober, I said, "Mrs. Ford, I need to make an amends to you. I stood on this stage and told you I was sober and I was lying through my teeth." And it just, what an opportunity to go back to the scene of the crime,
right,
and say, "Look at what a little shit I was," and just a lying little.
And also, like, sort of make a good thing out of something that potentially could be a lifetime touch of shame.
Yeah, well, and I think what it also is it's you do something like that, and maybe you take the quote unquote stigma of being an alcoholic, and you file it down just a little bit. It's a lot better these days than it was 40 years ago, or even when I got sober. It was 33 years it's been, and there's a lot more understanding and appreciation, because people that know that everybody has somebody that's in trouble with drugs or alcohol, or died from fentanyl, and it's a tsunami.
felt like that satin jacket, they're not that breathable. You know, you had plenty of them, I'm sure, in the 70s. And I was thinking like, gee, it's kind of warm. And I thought, sweatshirt, that's the right move. And it's a Mickey shirt, which of course reminds me of another icon. Oh, look at that. It's so funny. I was looking at
this is I love this because it's like it's the Scream but it's animal. It's like it's that edge that I find is such a
buzz.
Yeah.
It's the irreverence.
Yeah, it's the irreverent. It's totally the irreverence. You see, you would have fit well at the round table with Benchley and Waldorf and Benchley and Waldorf. Benchley and Waldo.
Yeah, Peter Benchley,
Robert
his guest
Benchley
appearances on the Muppets, which it's funny because I didn't look at that because you're thinking about other things. You go, oh, is the camera on and stuff, and then I thought, well, you know what? Much like other things that you talk about, and I saw a brilliant Ray Charles clip about. Oh yeah, oh that's good. Yeah, and I'll cut in.
Show it.
I'll cut in too. It's amazing too because
Yeah.
shooting on the 2K, I could do 4K, but it's so ungainly.
Yay.
You cut in and you're like, wow, look at that. And you think about the advancements in tech. People could shoot movies on these things now.
It's great.
It really is it really is the democratization of media, which of course was not around when you started. And I'm a little fuzzy on the chronology. I know there's Holy Mackerel. I know you were on A&M. What came first? Because you also had a writing deal. So that I'm a little fuzzy. And let me just add for the listeners and viewers that the first time your music got noticed was actually during a job where you were an actor. So
I was acting in The Chase with Marlon Brando. I mean, I worked, I think, close to 3 months on it. Shooting Night. It was a movie that starred Marlon Brando, Robert Redford, Jane Fonda, Robert Duvall.
Not
Monster
bad.
Cast. I mean, it was directed by Arthur Penn, who had just done The Miracle Worker.
Oh wow, okay.
I think won the Oscar for that. And so it was shooting at night, and there were 4 teenagers in it, and I was probably 22 at the time, maybe 23, and I was playing a 15-year-old. And no, wait a minute. That was it was probably a little later than that. It was like 64, 65.
Mm-hmm.
And the first picture I did was The Loved One when I was like 22 and played a 13-year-old.
A wild movie with Liberace and Shelley Winters, right?
Jonathan Winters.
Sorry.
Yeah. Jonathan Winters playing 2 parts, and we became... I followed him around like a puppy.
How could you not?
Him. He was the other neighbor. There was, in Montecito, it was Robert Mitchum and Jonathan Winters. So I was the normal guy on the block.
What a nexus of...
Oh my God. It was like, the Bermuda Triangle of just brilliance with these 2 guys.
I was thinking like Ghostbusters, where we were like, well, right in the center here is where...
At this exact spot right here is where I got my property and all. But no, The Chase I was cast in this movie, and I think by the time it was shot, I had maybe 2 lines in it. But there were a lot of scenes where the kids we'd drive up in this hot rod, and the 4 of us would jump out.
Yeah.
There's a big climactic scene where Robert Redford is hiding in a junkyard that we set fire to. And we're shooting these night scenes forever and ever and ever, and the guy that I was sharing a dressing room with had a beautiful guitar, Mark Seaton, and who has since passed away. Has actually sadly committed suicide as a very young man. But he had a great guitar, and he said, and I picked it up and was looking at it, and he said, "Don't touch the guitar, it's a Martin." I went, "I didn't know they had names, Sorry, Martin." But I was just starting to kind of wanted to make some music and all, and so I bought a little guitar, and I was just learning chords, and we're watching the scene, and it's where Bubba is hiding in the junkyard, and we've just set fire to it, and just for my own amusement, I'm sitting on the steps of this little tiny, about the size of this couch motorhome. And I'm going, Bubba, 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 come out wherever you are, or we're gonna come in and get you. Yes, we're gonna come in and get you. And as the fates would have it, Robert Duvall is walking by. And he said, "What is that?" I said, "It's a guitar. I just bought it." And he said, "Not the guitar. What were you just singing?"
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know. I just made it up." He said, "Come with me." And so I get up. He said, "Bring the guitar." Okay. So he walks me over to Arthur Penn, the director, and he said, "Show him." I said, "It's a guitar. I painted it and I bought." And he said, "No, not the guitar." He said, "Show him what you were just singing." I went, "Bubba, Bubba, Bubba, come out wherever you are. Oh, we're going to come in." And he went. He said, "What is that?" I said, I just made it up." He went, "Come over here and stand by the barbed wire." And they light them up, boys. And they lit up all the fires. He said, "Sing it." I sang it. Then he put me up on the back of the hot rod and sing it. And it's in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 2 years later, because I'm quick. 2 years later, I start writing songs.
Yeah. And what was the time, or what was the chronology, basically, from that when you really started writing to getting the contracts with A&M?
Almost immediately. So it was like 65, maybe it was 64, 65 when I was in the chase. And then the movie comes out, and I'm still not a songwriter. Around 67, like end of 66, 67, I start messing around with songs, and I wind up getting a publishing deal with White Whale Records, the guys that do the Turtles.
Oh, sure.
And they signed me to like a 7-year, everything for like $50 a week. I didn't even have an attorney look at it.
Yeah.
And and so I write a bunch of songs that I can barely play on a guitar. And I go in and I record them, so they have them. And they invite me in, and I've got a little girlfriend that's moved into my little tiny little apartment with me, and I'm like songwriter. And they say, "You know what? We're tearing up your contract." And they tore it up, and they said, "We don't think you have a future in the music business."
That's why White Whale is such a titan in the industry these days.
I mean, no is a gift. No is a gift.
Yeah.
Because now I'm writing songs, and the next thing I do is I get hired as an improvisational actor on Mort Saul's local TV show.
Oh,
and
wow.
while I'm there, I meet a guy named Biff Rose, and Biff writes funny songs, and he plays me a funny song, and I say, "I don't think it's funny. I think it's pretty." So I write lyrics to that song and a couple more. He goes to A&M, gets a record publishing deal at A&M, and then says, a couple of these I wrote with another guy, and they said, "Well, we want to meet him." They were looking for a lyricist for Roger Nichols.
Oh,
there
wow.
you have, in about 3 sentences, how I got in the music business.
And this goes back to something that you've referenced before, not just sort of being present and letting things happen, but when you don't get the thing that you think you want,
you get what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
This is The Rock is a great example. He wanted to be a pro wrestler. He had some injury. It didn't work out. Now he's one of the biggest movie stars there is. So I think that's a great lesson to hear continually, too, because it happens in all streams of life.
The first song that got recorded, I had actually 2 recorded the same day, the first 2 songs. One was a song that I wrote with Roger Nichols, because this was this amazing guy that wrote some music note for note, and he wanted somebody to write lyrics note for note.
Oh, sure.
I wound up being that guy. The first thing we wrote was called "It's Hard to Say Goodbye," and Claudine Longier recorded it.
Oh, wow.
She was Andy Williams' wife, and so anyway, but the same day, the B-side of "Tiptoe Through the Tulip" by Tiny Tim came out with the song that I wrote with Biff called "Fill Your Heart."
I'm very familiar with the David Bowie version.
The David, again, I'm going, I love Tiny's a Sweetheart, and that's an amazing album Richard made. But I'm white light and black leather. I'm rock and roll. I want to, but we get a lot of airplay, and it's a huge monstrous hit.
Yeah.
And But then again, it's like like you could not connect the dots to where I wind up having the first outside song that David Bowie ever recorded.
Right.
And it's just like, God, thank you. As we say, God, thank you. Wow. Yeah.
Was God something that you or someone or some being, a higher power rather, anything that you considered before sobriety? Were you at all religious before that?
I used to go to, because I went to 9 schools by the time I was in the 9th grade, and I went to church with somebody when I was about 8, and I went forward and gave myself to Christ and got a lot of attention. So I did that wherever we moved. That was like my first theater, but I always felt, before I got sober, I had been exposed to the Church of Religious Science, and Ernest Holmes, and then in recovery was made aware of Emmett Fox. And Emmett Fox, I mean, the whole concept of that massive movement, which was also an important relationship between Emmett Fox and Bill Wilson.
Oh, right. Okay.
Emmett Fox is as a part of the Church of Religious Science, which is basically that thoughts become things. What we dwell on, we create. That there is this, just as I say I'm powerless over alcohol, the fact is what I dwell on. If I think I'm not going to get that job, I'm not going to get that. Why would I even try? I'm not going to get that job. That's a prayer. That's the universe going. That evidently is what he wants, because that's what he's thinking about. Boom. He talks about golden key in the situation where if you're looking at a problem, if you imagine God where that problem is, that the Inuit are a classic example of the practice of that principle, which is if they saw 2 sled dogs fighting, they would picture God where the dogs were, and the dogs would stop fighting.
Oh, wow.
So for me, back in the 70s, I mean, long before I'd earned my stripes as an alcoholic, I used to say to my manager, I go, "Do you feel it?" And he'd go, "Well, do you feel what?" I go, "There's something fabulous coming. I mean, can you feel it?" And I would feel it. I would feel it more than I would think it. I would almost create that, just going,
Yeah.
"Can you feel it?" And eventually he was like, "No, but if you can, I know what's coming." And again and again and again, the phone would ring, and it'd be just a great job. It's Jim Henson wants you to come over and do this, or Streisand, or all these things.
Or Alan Parker.
What's that?
Or Alan Parker.
Or Alan Parker for Bugsy Malone, exactly.
Could we talk? I'd love to talk. I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. That's good. Cut me off. It's actually one of the few ways you can always get something in there. Is like I do blither on.
Well, it's No, what you say is fascinating stuff, and it's all very worthwhile. But I really would like to get into Bugsy Malone, because it's such an outside kind of thing. And it was his first feature film after a long career, very successful one as a commercial director with Ridley Scott's company.
It started out as a bedtime story he told his kids. Is how it began. Every night he'd put them in bed and he'd say, "Okay." They'd say, "Dad, we want to hear stories about Bugsy." And he'd go, "Okay, well, Bugsy was... he was going to be a boxer, but and he'd just make up this story."
Yeah.
And eventually got enough to where he got the idea for doing basically a John Garfield kind of, typical Warner Brothers gangster movie.
Yeah.
With kids. And, he reached out, he came to see me, and I was playing Vegas, and showed me basically the drawings. His idea was that this special world, everything was built to their size. That was like it could have been cast with adults, in like just the traditional, stereotypical roles of the gangsters and the malls and all. Only the difference was that the machine guns that were just being developed were called splurge guns, and they shot cream pie. And the cars, they would pedal, but they made the sounds of the engine.
Yeah.
So So it was just, I mean, he showed me the drawings, and I was just, I mean, I was, it looked like, you know, the designer's sketches for a John Garfield movie
Oh,
or a
sure.
Jimmy Cagney movie.
Yeah.
And in this, you know, I've always approached writing songs for a movie or a play or anything, as like acting. You know, what's the inner life of the character like? You know,
Yeah.
so so to me it was like an acting job. I was all these different characters, and I very quickly wrote the songs. The only thing that I'm really regretful about is that Jodie Foster is the most amazing actress. I mean, if you haven't seen, you know, her latest movie, it's amazing. But everything she's done has been so brilliant, and I put somebody else's voice in her mouth when she sang, and I felt bad about it. But we kind of had to do it. You know, we didn't know which kids could sing and which ones couldn't.
Sure.
They could dance, they could act, but to sing and have them all be in the right keys and everything, I did it with adult voices. So I became the voice of Fizzy,
Yeah.
and Archie Hahn from
Phantom.
you know, the Juicy Fruits, and Phantom became the voice of
Bugsy?
well, he was the voice of Bugsy. He was also the voice
Sam?
no, he was the voice of
The piano
Cagey
player.
Joe.
Oh,
So
okay.
you want to be a boxer in the golden ring, you know. So, but yeah, it was just an amazing. And then Mickey Dolenz said, "This is going to make a great play," and he adapted it to the stage, and it ran for a year in the West End of London. Every kid growing up in London, in England, and in Australia, and a lot of places around the world these days does Bugsy Malone.
They know it the way that Americans know Grease.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you know this?
Well, besides being a big fan of your work and being that way since, well, obviously when I was a very little kid, the Muppet Movie, and not knowing things about songwriters, but I grew to know that stuff very quickly.
Wow.
And then on a UHF broadcast, The Phantom of the Paradise, I was very young. I probably maybe 8, 9, but
Wow.
I was already watching other.
You're in L.A., right?
No, I grew up in Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts.
Yes.
But they were showing it all the time.
Yeah, and I saw it real late at night because I've always had sleeping problems. The bipolar diagnosis helped explain that a little, but
Yeah.
but I would always also
Wow.
for me, I didn't have the easiest childhood at school, and I had weight issues and various issues, and music.
Were you
and
heavy or
I
skinny?
was. I was heavy. Yeah,
were.
and I still have issues with that. You know, like gained a little over the holidays. Look at myself in the monitor and go, "Oh no."
Yeah.
But I
no.
know it's a thing. Go ahead. Sorry, and you've also
Oh,
dealt
yeah.
with that.
When I quit drinking, well, actually, I was a little down when I quit drinking, but right before that, I weighed at my peak 187. I weigh 130 now, you know.
Yeah, and you stick to a fitness regimen. Actually, I'll get back to that in a second. I really wanted to say that film and music were my oasis of peace,
Yeah.
comfort, inspiration, and everything else. Like I don't have. There's a lot of memories or time in childhood that I don't really remember, but I do remember. I still remember seeing you in Phantom of the Paradise. When you walk into the scene with the mirrors and when Winslow comes
Yeah.
up and grabs you and trust me and all that.
Yeah.
And I just remember being fascinated because, like you said before, the set was built to scale. And I was just like, who is this? And
Yeah.
and from there,
he's this little guy, you know.
well, yeah, but also like grabbed by the sinister, but knowingly, you know, like I got that stuff when I was a kid. And I loved that stuff. Like
Yeah.
you love villains like in Tommy, you know, the uncle and the cousin are like
Yeah.
vermin, but the performance, actually Paul Nicholas, who another guy that at that age I said, who is this? Covered your song Sunday and did a phenomenal job of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He did a great version. It's kind of a disco version of Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's marvelous, and he's a big, huge star of some screen, but television and theater in England. But over here, you'd have to be someone who's obsessed with various people you see on TV when you're a child.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why I've always been an Anglophile. And loving Bugsy Malone, again, I saw not on UHF, but on Frank Evruch's Channel 7 program, for anyone in
Wow.
Massachusetts who is familiar. And I was galvanized because I thought, what is this? I knew who Scott Baio was. I probably knew who Jodie Foster was by that point, but maybe not. And I just loved it. And then later on when I realized, and it wasn't that long after, maybe I was 12, something double digits, but early, that the same guy who did that did this.
Was this, yeah.
And then it was a process of acquiring your records because for a while they weren't available on CD here. I ended up buying some Japanese imports. For anyone listening that wants to get some CDs, though that they seem outmoded, go to Amazon.uk, and I was able to get Ordinary Fool and some other stuff.
Wow.
And whereas the record store, the Japanese imports would be,
Yeah.
And then, of course, anytime I came across, so I want to show this to listeners, this is where you can get Waking Up Alone. I have this on vinyl, too, but I couldn't find it.
Well, I have to say a word about Michael James Jackson because when I signed it with A&M eventually, I was signed also as a recording artist. But the first album that I did was Richard Perry produced for the group I put together called The Holy Mackerel.
Yeah.
And when the group broke up by the time the album came out. My brother was in the group with me and all, and it was a great experience working with Richard. But I became friends with Michael James Jackson. And Michael James Jackson produced the Old Fashioned Love Song album, which was, and I got to tell you, he said, I don't want anything between you and the song and the listener. I don't want a lot of strings. I don't want a lot of orchestration. I don't want a lot of,
double tracking,
a
stuff
lot of
like
camouflage.
that. Yeah.
And I said, I happen to love camouflage. He said, yeah, but you don't need it. He said, and I didn't love the way I sounded, especially in those years. I just. It was like, Bill Medley and I were born the same day in the same year.
Oh, wow.
And that's why we look so much alike. But Bill Medley gets this, I always joke that, proof that God has a sense of humor. Bill gets to go, you never close your eyes anymore. And I go, day after day, I must face a world of strangers. And it's just, but as the years have passed and all, I like singing. I love it. I don't sing much anymore because my hearing is so bad.
I got to see you, though, thankfully, at the legendary place I can't remember the name of. You did a New York residency where Elaine Stritch used to.
Oh, yeah, at the Carlisle.
The Carlisle.
Yeah, that was great fun.
That was fantastic. You did my request. There was a loud table of drinkers in front of us, which I thought was wildly ironic, but they were a little making noise. And then you said something like, very nice to them to sort of quiet them down. But then you said, does anyone have any requests? And first I yelled Flash, because I love that, but also Waking Up Alone, and you did it. And I was quite moved by that. Yeah.
Well, that means a lot, Craig. Thank you,
Paul. It's wonderful to be able to tell you that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, you've always been so generous, and this whole thing with the screening of Phantom of the Paradise and your coverage of that, and it just and we hooked up online, and it's just it's like you feel like there's not a word yet for old friends who just met, but turns out we met 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm very thankful and full of gratitude.
Yeah, me too.
For that.
Me too.
Thank you. And I love posting the Thursday thing. I try to do it every Thursday, but
I know it's a Thursday. It's so funny because little girls used to come up to me and they go, "Would you say Thursday?" I go, "Do what? Say Thursday." I go, "Oh yeah, Thursday. Today is Thursday." And they go, "Oh."
Yeah, those screenings, to be able to see an archive print of that, which I've been able to do 3 times at New Beverly, which is wonderful. Tarantino's theater. So.
Oh yeah. How about that? I tell the Phantom fans, like in Winnipeg, huge fans of the.
That's where I got. Sorry, that's
the 50th.
Sorry, that's where I got Garrett Graham and William Finley's autograph.
Yeah,
one of the
Am
first
I on
one.
There?
Yeah. That's he signed at the Phantom as well. And then if I had a silver marker, I would ask you to sign. I'm not a big autograph guy, but
Phantom Palooza is in November. We're going to go back up to Winnipeg. I keep telling all the fans up there, don't you realize the reason I have a career today is because you guys kept this movie alive, and all the guys that Edgar Wright and the like.
Well, Daft
Quentin, now
Punk as well.
Quentin hasn't used me yet. I mean, come on, Quentin.
Yeah, but Roger Avery has. So
What's that?
Roger Avery is co-writer for Pulp Fiction.
Oh, that's right.
Rules of Attraction.
That's right. That's right.
A terrific performance. Which, knowing your history, it's fun that you're a doctor saying that guy's, or you're telling him, yeah, you're gonna die. You took too much drugs or something like that. It's very funny.
You'll wind up on the back page, and then all improvised, all of that.
And of course, that's right, Edgar Wright. And your moment in Baby Driver is not. It's kind of a turning point, and it's also so funny in a very tense situation, and it's just the tone of it is amazing.
And I won't be in the sequel if there is one, because I get blown away by Jamie Foxx.
Alas, but a perfect moment.
I love acting though, and I've I got to work with some great directors. I'm in the Doors. With
that's right.
So
that's right. What was that like working with Oliver Stone?
Well, he was very, it was weird. I went down to audition. And he wasn't, and there was just a camera set up, and just somebody said, go and just go talking to the, So I just did like a Truman Capote thing. I went like, well, you're not here, are you? I'm so sorry because the fact is I'm slightly offended. And there's something you should realize right now is that you're just a prick. It's obvious or something. I don't know what I said.
Yeah.
But I did basically Truman Capote. And so he then called. He said, "I want you to do the press agent of Jim Morrison and the Doors, and basically do that. And he I was doing Truman, so basically.
What's a good fallback if you're not sure what to do? Do Truman, right?
When you don't know what to do, you just go ahead and do that. It's like it's going to make a lot of sense eventually.
And other directors, of course, De Palma, and you had quite a close working relationship. That you were essentially really collaborating. It wasn't just like you were doing something. And then, of course, who we were going to mention before when we talked about our sweatshirts, Jim Henson.
Oh yeah, wow. Well, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas just closed at the Studebaker Theater in Chicago. Opened in 2020 in New York to the best reviews ever. I mean, Jim had to be just going, oh my God. The one thing he really wanted was that he didn't get was a big stage show,
Oh, sure.
A Broadway show. And we opened to just the best reviews. I mean, the Times was, I couldn't have written a better review. And it's an amazing company, a beautiful script, an adaptation of the first thing I did with Jim, which Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. First of all, I was a fan. I mean, a fan all the way back to the Ed Sullivan Show, before I knew they were Muppets, when they were Slinkies going, mana, whatever.
Yeah, right.
It was, and on the road, through the one thing that was a constant element for myself and my band was Sesame Street.
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's like that's where we learned which fork to use. It was like
it's helpful for rock bands and
we learned to count
yeah.
and spell. So, but I love the humor. I love the fact that he never wrote down to kids. He was just amazing. And so I went over and did the first season of the Muppet Show. And he asked me, he said, there's this wonderful children's book, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. And I'd love for you to take a look at the script. Jerry Jewell is writing a script, and we're going to do it as a 1 hour special for Canadian television, but also for HBO. And it was the first thing, and it was just an amazing fit. And then he asked me to do the Muppet Movie, which really, really surprised me. I mean, it was just the greatest gift in the world, and the example that I give of what it was like to work with Jim is simply this. I had just bought a house in the Hollywood Hills, so we rehearsed up there. We met. I think it was the first time I ever had anybody up to the house. Was Jim and Jerry Jewell, Frank Oz.
Yeah.
And then we all sat around talking about what basically it was a road picture, how they all get together, whatever, some of the scenes and all. The script was beginning to come together. And I walked Jim to his car, and on the way to the car, and I just said, this is a big deal, and we're not going to, I said I wanted Kenny Asher to do it with me. and which he agreed to. Again, smartest thing I ever did. Uh, and I said, well, we're not going to surprise. We'll let you hear the songs while we're working on them to make sure we're headed in the right direction. And he went, oh, Paul, that's not necessary. Yeah, he says, I'll hear them in the studio. And that was right after A Star Is Born. So that was it was the two extremes of, one was very, very hands-on, and one was, he just trusted his choices. And he allowed, in his way, this creative freedom to just, like, show me.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, if he didn't get it, he didn't say no. He just went, oh, wow, yeah. Which he only did once, which was Kenny and I wrote the song "I'm Going to Go Back There Someday."
Oh yeah.
There was no scene that was not listed in the script.
Oh wow.
So we wrote this song about this landlocked bird that's, looking at the sky and the desert. And he was like, oh, wow. But obviously, it just, in his mind, it was very kind of a spiritual, ethereal, spiritual kind of a song. And what was great is about 3 days later, he came back and he said, what if at the state fair scene, Gonzo buys a bunch of helium balloons for his girlfriend Camilla, and this landlocked bird gets to experience flight, and it's a spiritual awakening for him.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't use those terms because I hadn't had mine yet, but that was the basic deal. Is all of a sudden he experiences flight, and he knows that's what he's supposed to be doing. He's a bird. And I think we're all landlocked birds. I think you're a landlocked bird, Craig. I think I am too.
That's lovely. Yeah, I would agree.
People at home are landlocked birds.
And one of the many magic things about the Muppet Movie and your other writing is it speaks to those things. I know you, as you mentioned before, you used to joke about codependent anthems, which I think is a great line, but those songs also don't speak down to kids. So the movie doesn't speak down to kids, and that helps to bolster their intelligence because it's there anyway. Yeah. They get it. They understand it, as I did, as millions and millions of other kids did, and you can still watch it as an adult. Like, I'm looking forward to showing my son the Muppet Movie when he's able to.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what's cool about it is that it's almost like looking at a beautiful house or a bit of architecture from different angles. You love it at first from one side, and then you walk around, or it's so a kid of 8 or 9 can enjoy the Muppet Movie on one level, and then as an adult you can listen to Aurora Borealis shining down in Dallas.
I swear to God,
that,
I was just thinking about that because my dance night, Videodrome Discotheque, I liked to pair songs that seemed incongruous but actually worked well together. So I played videos too. So I cut the movie scene to the album track and did Moving Right Along. And everyone went fucking crazy because everyone has a kid inside still.
Oh, how wonderful!
Yeah, and it's a dance song. It's the dance number. So, and I would also play "Wig in a Box" from Hedwig, and I lost my train of thought there. But and Jim, from what I understand, was a very gentle spirit, but at the same time, with that spirit, showed that you could run a massive organization that was very complicated.
Amazing, yeah.
So, sorry, the mic.
I mean, when you think about it, A&M Records, which was... So I keep doing it.
That's okay. That's okay. It means we're engaged in a conversation.
Yeah. I do that also with my car with my phone in the car when I'm driving, because I'll hold the phone up here and I'll start talking to Mariana or whoever I'm talking with, and then I get to... so I'm still doing it.
I'm a big talk with my hands guy too, so I understand.
Exactly. Yeah. But... Yeah. And I've lost my train of thought.
That's okay. So, Jim...
if you have a conversation and you don't lose your train of thought a couple times, must be a really boring conversation. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and that's always what I go to. And it's really a lovely gift to be able to do chats like this, because, I don't know, it's often sometimes I think, how often do you get to sit with someone and actually just talk straight through for a while? And as we get older too, it doesn't happen as often.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Jim as a gentle spirit guiding this huge organization, but as we were talking about directors, I have to ask about the process of working on Ishtar. Which I have to say, lest that sound like I'm denigrating it, while I think the plot gets a little too in the way, after a while, the first 30 minutes, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. And your songs, the deliberately bad songs for, was it Warren and something and Clark, Rogers and Clark, I think.
Exactly. An acting job, you know.
Right.
I wrote, I think, maybe 50 songs for the 30 that there are bits and pieces of. And Elaine May said, I want you to write the whole song.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to sing it to me, because when you sing it, it sounds like a song. I want you to teach it to Warren and Dustin.
Yeah.
And have them sing it and play it for, you know. So we got away with, I had a piano player that was part of my band, that a guy named Doug Walters, a lot of patience. And I would write songs, and he would teach them to Dustin and Warren, and they would sing them to her, and she'd be like, and I would go, give me some direction. What do you want? And she was like that with actors. She'd do 50 takes or 30 takes of.
She would outdo Warren. She would out-Beatty Warren Beatty. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And but what she'd always say is, "I'll know it when I see it."
Yeah.
Or in my case, I'll know it when I hear it. And I'm like trying to write some, but I don't. Anybody can write bad songs. My foot's on fire. My sister's for hire. My life is totally fucked. Whatever. But to write something that's believable and bad, where these two guys just have different backgrounds, sort of for me to think of it like I'm Chuck and then I'm Lyle, and they just don't match together. So. What finally happened is I sang her a song called That a Lawnmower Can Do All That. I wrote a song called That a Lawnmower Can Do All That. And I got to the bridge of it, and it was, really like, so I can see, it was a bridge, I can see her standing and talk. The first part of the song is that Saturday morning, the sound of a lawnmower touches my soul. For summer memories, the memories of Willa and me, that a lawnmower can do all that, that a lawnmower can do all that, that a lawnmower can do all that. It's amazing. And then I sang her the bridge. I can see her standing in the backyard of my mind. She cracks her knuckles and the scab that's on her knee won't go away. I can see the woman waiting in her eyes, and I can see the love, but I can't see the Brooklyn Dodgers in L.A. She said, that's what I want. That's what I want. And it was like we were off and running. And it was just one of the best jobs I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And I was in Morocco, or I spent almost a year in the Waldorf Astoria in New York, writing songs, playing them. It was, and oddly enough, the New York Times re-reviewed it recently.
Oh, wow. Beautifully
and very lovingly. But most people say kind of the same thing as what you're talking about, is that, the stuff in the desert and with the conflict and all, in some ways wasn't funny. I thought it was one of the funniest scripts I ever read in my life.
Mm-hmm.
The blind camel scene
is very funny, and I do love the whole movie. But the first 30 minutes is the pitch of it's so funny. Also, as a musician and all that stuff, like knowing like how specific to those guys that bad songwriting is, and who want to be Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah,
but yet they have that almost like people celebrate Tommy Wiseau, the Disaster Artist film, and all that. These guys, this is their dream. So it works on two levels. It's funny because you kind of care about these guys, and they're writing amazingly bad songs, but they're amazingly bad.
God, there's one that's
Hot Fudge Covered Love. No.
How about When You Can See a Rose? When You Can Smell a Rose. No, wait. When you can hear a rose, when you can smell a waterfall, When you can taste the pride in Dallas and lose your taste for malice. When everybody gets a fair shake and it's nobody's turn in the barrel, that's when the morning is going to change your name to Carol. I mean, I had so much fun, you know.
Now, do demos of all those 50 songs exist?
Well, beyond that, Michael James Jackson and I co-produced, which means I was there and he produced, produced a full rock and roll version of all that stuff.
Wow.
To be released as their, it's at the very end, you see that the best of
Rogers and Clark.
Exactly, Rogers and Clark in that one shot in the store window. So we did this. We're talking about this, the best player, Waddy Waddell, and just great rock and roll musicians, and did the whole album. And comped vocals and background. And just hardcore rock and roll. Nam, I'm wondering if I give a damn. I don't care. Whatever. It was great, and it just got shelved because when the reviews started coming in, Warren was like, Wow. And we may have lost it all in with the fire.
No, in the Universal. That is really sad because with the critical reappraisal of it and the cult following that it's had probably since the beginning.
Yeah, now it's like it's hip.
Yeah, I got to see that at New Beverly as well, and that was a thrill. They did a Elaine May retrospective, and I said, that's the first thing I want to go see.
Yeah.
And so it was great to see, Dustin's tasteful bongo playing in that.
I've got to try to find, I know that there are mixes. I think, Michael passed away a couple of years ago from COVID.
That's terrible.
About a year ago. And, but I think that he, may have some of the mixes and all, and I can ask his lady. But just the nicest, sweetest man in the world, and I was just a mess. By the time we were over in Morocco, I was.
Now I want to get into that further, but I got to ask, how easy was it to score drugs in Morocco?
Well, I didn't do drugs in Morocco.
Oh, okay.
I did not. But I drank, and
sure.
I drank, and I drank, and I drank, and I fell backwards into tipping the band at a supper club. The last night I was in Morocco, I was told that the way you tip the band is you put the money in the cleavage of the belly dancer.
Okay.
And evidently that's how to make the band really hate you. It's just the most disgusting thing that for me to be that aggressive to actually do that. But I walked up and did that, and I was wearing cowboy boots, and I walked away backwards, kind of bowing, of going, oh, this was such a rude thing to do. And there was a fountain with the edges of it about that high off maybe 18 inches off the ground, with live sea turtles in it and a statue of Neptune with his trident. And I went over backwards into the fountain, hit my head on the trident, which immediately cut a big Y on the back of my head that exploded.
Oh no!
Fell into the water, where I'm told that a turtle bit my ear. They pulled me out of there. I remember. I don't remember being pulled out of the water. I was out cold for I don't know how long, in the car being raced to the hospital. As the ambulance that was coming to get me went by the other way, I came to long enough to go back to sleep, and then I woke up with somebody holding me down while they sewed up the back of my head.
Wow.
So that was my memento of how much I drank, and that was that was 1986, I think. Well, 86 when we.
Oh, so 85 when you were there.
I think 86. I think didn't it come out a little later than that?
It might have been 87.
Yeah,
but in that range. So about 3 to 4 years.
I actually had my last drink September 21st, 1989. I celebrate March 15th because on March 14th I took a Valium. And I argued with myself for a long time about, I used to have a prescription for it. That was not a slip. And then I went, yes, it was, you ass, So I changed my date. But I had my last drink in September of 1989. and as bad as it got, was just about from Ishtar to Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay. That's a journey.
That's
from
probably
Ishtar to Oklahoma City.
From Ishtar to Oklahoma City was pretty scary.
Yeah, I can imagine. Was there much in the way of songwriting? I know you were on tour. Actually, and that makes me wonder what touring was like for you at that point. And
I was not touring much at that point. I was, the phone was not ringing. The career, when I got sober, the career I thought I had been gone about 10 years.
I see, yeah.
And a classic story is that Tracy Jackson, my co-writer and friend of Gratitude and Trust, wanted me to be a regular on a series that she had sold. And she went to the studio and she said, Paul Williams is perfect for this. And they said, you know what? If you get Paul Williams, you're going to have to back up the truck full of cocaine because we won't touch him.
Wow.
So
okay.
that's where I was when I was given this amazing gift. And with the last 33 years, I just couldn't have planned any of it. And I got really good at surrendering to the moment and seeing what the big amigo had in store for me. And I've been given so many opportunities, not only to write, and act, but also to, I have a long relationship with ASCAP.
You're the president of ASCAP,
president and chairman of the board. I have a day job, and
a very important one, particularly in the days of streaming.
And you know what? I'm a pretty good hood ornament, but there's also an engine of just this most amazing staff. A CEO, Beth Matthews, who is just stunning, has managed to really with all the challenges that we've had in the world of streaming and the like, everything from the Napster at a certain point, where it went from like stealing to just such devaluation of music, but the work that has been done at ASCAP and by the whole music community in so many ways, and really fighting, and that's the best part of my job is to be an advocate for songwriters in DC, and we are doing much better, and it's going to keep getting better because
Well, with you as the head of the organization as well as a songwriter and a musician, and also a very determined, passionate advocate in general for people that need help, for others to see the light, if you will, for others to reclaim themselves.
In 1977, the first real stab at advocacy for me beyond being against the war in Vietnam was when Anita Bryant took out had this whole insane belief that members of the gay community, the LGBTQ plus community, should not be teaching in our schools. And I took out a full-page ad in Variety that said, Mr. and Mrs. Paul Williams, in response to Anita Bryant's crusade, have stopped drinking ... screwdrivers. She was the spokesperson for Florida orange juice.
Yeah.
And I just felt it was a human rights issue, and it made no sense. And are you telling me that my kids can't read Rimbaud's poetry and because he was gay? Wait, we need to talk.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that, and in these days, I have to tell you that the big fight is probably going to be next up is artificial intelligence. And making sure that that is probably going to be fantastic for medicine,
right,
and coming up with cures for cancer and everything else. You can't just randomly use all of our music, our songs, our culture, and train your computers and then just have it spit out a version thereof. So that's a big fight, and I think it's a fight that we're going to do well on.
I think so, because now is the time, right, to put restrictions in place. My friend Gala said that the biggest worry for her, and I hadn't thought about this, is that in the way that calculators, we don't do math, a lot of kids growing up may not sort of pursue the certain aspects of the creative life that make it worthwhile.
There's something that happens between the blank piece of paper and the ceiling you're looking for the words on that is opens your own soul, and you find that you have, in fact, certain there are bits and pieces of magic drifting through your being that you can maybe find something that's true about yourself to share with another human being, and that's worth trying and protecting.
There are so many, 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 many things that I would probably continue to ask you about. But of course, we've been going about 2 hours, and it's been just one of the most wonderful conversations I could have hoped to have. And I knew it would be that way. And to actually experience it is a true delight. And before we go, though, I have to tell you that Rainbow Connection is the song that Ada and I sing to our son every night. And now she's in London right now, but she sings it to him every night. And we sing it together. And before we knew that we were having a child, she had visited me, and because we met online during the pandemic, so that's a whole story. But when we were going to go to the airport, of course, we're crying and everything. And I said, hold on a minute. And I put the stereo on and played Rainbow Connection, and we slow danced. And it was just, so that's our song.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's what I call a heart payment. That's when somebody says that you have been a piece of our life, and it makes my life a little bigger, and the gratitude needle just goes like that. That I just, that I had these amazing opportunities, and I just I want you to know that there's a part of me that, as I say thank you to you, I just want to line up Kenny and Jimmy, and they're just,
Yeah.
I have had this remarkable accident that has been my life. It's a really lucky little guy sitting across from you.
Well,
and I'm so grateful. And I love doing this. And you know what? We can do it again.
I would love that. I would love that.
You know?
Absolutely. So much to talk about. Paul, thank you again. Love you, and talk to you again soon.
Love you already.